Let's all say Namaho Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back on behalf of our GBC committee called Srila Prabhupada's Position. Welcome back to our 10-part Founder Acharya series here in ISKCON Chowpatty, doing the Sambandha section, deepening our relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Lesson 2, the Founder Acharya. In the first lesson, we looked at the Guru principle. What a Guru is, why we need a Guru, how the Guru is one, how Gurus are different, and how all Gurus are different manifestations of the original spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this lesson, we'll look at the Founder Acharya, the foundational spiritual master of all Gurus and disciples in his line. So you may recall that I mentioned there's a reason I have an image leading off a lesson. This is the title slide of the lesson, and there's a reason I have that particular image of the title slide. There is Srila Vyasadeva instructing Srila Madhva Acharya. Although Srila Madhva Acharya accepted Diksha and Sannyas from one Achyuta Preksha Swami, since Madhva received the most shiksha from Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur listed Madhva as Vyasa's disciple in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta called his list the Bhagavat Parampara, a line of Bhagavat instructors. So you know that list we have in our books, the disciplic succession? So in the 1960s, when there were no books, can you imagine an ISKCON without books? Well, welcome to the 1960s. Finally, toward the end of 1968, 2 books came out. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which was a compilation, an edited compilation of Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita talks in the late 1966. And also a heavily abridged edition of the Bhagavad Gita came out. This is the first Gita published by the Macmillan Company. You may have seen a reproduction. They recently reproduced it. It's a purple cover, paperback, with a black Vishnu silhouette, with 2/3 of the purports cut out. Because Macmillan, the publisher, was so afraid the book would not sell that they asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, would you please trim this down to about 1/3 of what you wrote, this 1,000-page manuscript you submitted? So you can imagine how painful that was. But Prabhupada did that in the mood of in like a needle, right? And out like a plow. So just to get it published in at least some form, Prabhupada did that. And still enough of Prabhupada's potency shone through that it made a lot of us devotees. I mean, the Macmillan Company did not come out with the unabridged edition until America's birthday, the 4th of July, 1972. So for the first 6 years of the movement, and only and that only 4 of those years, 68 to 72, did we have a Gita, but it was Macmillan's abridged Gita. But it was, even that was potent enough to explode a Hare Krishna movement. So at the end of the introduction, you may recall, of the Gita, beautiful 30-page introduction, Prabhupada lists the disciplic succession. So when that appeared, devotees started writing Prabhupada letters, because there were hardly any books, and Prabhupada was traveling. So very often devotees asked him questions in letters. Practically speaking, Prabhupada managed the whole Hare Krishna movement through letters. That's why he wrote thousands of letters. These pale blue aerograms would float in, you know. And then they'd be Xeroxed and sent all over the place. No, before Xerox, there was no Xerox. Mimeographed. Yeah. So that list was mystifying to the devotees. What is this, Srila Prabhupada? What is this list? So they asked, and then the disciplic succession. They started asking questions about the list. One devotee wrote, these are 2 letter excerpts from 1969. One devotee wrote, Srila Prabhupada, how come Arjuna is not in our list? Arjuna is our hero. He heard the Bhagavad Gita, he got it. Parang Brahma, Parang Dhamma, you're God. How come he's not in our disciplic succession? So Prabhupada wrote back, yes, Arjuna accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we also, from Lord Chaitanya, we also accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, as they say in mathematics, things equal to the same thing are equal to each other. If A equals B and C equals B, that means A equals C. And then Prabhupada gave another example. He said, if you have a big tree that's got many branches, so you go way over here and you take a leaf from this branch, and you run way over here and you take a leaf from that branch, and then you test the leaves and you see they have the same taste, Prabhupada said. So then Prabhupada said this in the letter. Quote, disciplic succession does not mean one has to be directly a disciple of a particular person. It's not a line of initiators and initiated, contrary to what we may think. It's not a line of Diksha gurus and disciples. That's not what that list is. And then in another letter, so then that first letter he said what it's not. It doesn't mean you have to be directly a disciple of a particular person. Next letter excerpt. Rather, disciplic succession means to accept the disciplic conclusion. So therefore, Arjuna, we're in the same disciplic succession because we accept the same conclusion, even if we're not in the same list. You can't list everybody. It's like the branches are everywhere, you know. But if the conclusion is the same, then you're in the same parampara. Okay. So after initiating disciples, a guru must instruct and train them, especially by example. Thus, Srila Prabhupada identified our sampradaya as a line of acharyas. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called the list he made. He made that list. He called the list he made the Bhagavat Parampara, a line of instructors and instructed, and only the highlight gurus, not only the most prominent. You can't list everybody. And then Prabhupada says that we have to be in a disciplic succession of acharyas, people who are teaching by their example, not people who are simply talking, people who practice what they preach. What's going on here? Hare Krishna. All right. I have to keep my thumb pushing this button up, I think. Okay. Thus, Srila Prabhupada identified our sampradaya as a line of acharyas, teachers by example. Quote, The Acharya Sampradaya is strictly bona fide. Therefore, one must accept the Acharya Sampradaya, a line of people who practice what they preach. Right? Otherwise, one's endeavor will be futile, useless. That's Bhagavatam 10.2.31 purport excerpt. So as we'll see in this lesson, it is from the Acharya Sampradaya culture, that culture of people who practice what they preach, that the founder Acharya phrase eventually emerges in our own Gaudiya Vaishnav line. We will now explore the evolution of this English-Sanskrit compound, founder, Acharya. Founder, it's got a kind of organizational component, that's organizational flavor, and Acharya has a rather spiritual flavor. So English, Sanskrit. That phrase is less than 100 years old, but its seeds, the seeds of the idea go way back. So let's take a look at how it evolved over time. Okay, you have the mic, Prabhu, so who's that? 6 Goswamis. See, you had a lot of help. They told you. Okay, read this.
In the 16th century, after the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his chief disciples, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, founded the Vishwa Vaishnava Raja Sabha.
Right. Lord Chaitanya, 1486 to 1534 by the Christian calendar. He only wrote down what? Shikshastra, right? 8 verses. But he depended on his chief followers, especially the 6 Goswamis, to articulate his Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva philosophy, which they did voluminously, to the point where Prabhupada said that this is the most consistent, exacting, and voluminous religious culture of any religious culture in the world, thanks to the 6 Goswamis mainly. So within 11 years after Lord Chaitanya's disappearance in 1534, something organized happened. It was called the Vishwa Vaishnav Raj Sabha, and now Prabhu is going to tell us what that means. Read that.
The Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha is the gathering of devotees who worship the king of all Vaishnavas in the world, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
And this is according to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta in Sajjana Toshini. It's the sabha, just like we have a sabha right here. It's a gathering, or an assembly, or a congregation of devotees who worship the Vaishnav Raj, the king of the Vishva, of the world's devotees, Lord Chaitanya. So that was kind of an organizational seed of the founder Acharya phrase, because something organized was founded. And guess who was the biggest organizer? The youngest of the Goswamis, Srila Jiva Goswami. He emerged as the biggest organizer of the Vishwa Vaishnav Raj Sabha, even though he was the most prolific writer. It is said that Sri Jiva composed over 4 lakh of verses. That's 4 Mahabharatas. The Mahabharata has 100,000 verses, which is like, it's either 4 or 8 times longer than the Iliad and the Odyssey combined. That's the longest Western poem ever written. So Jiva, he did over 4 Mahabharatas worth of writing. And yet he found time to be the biggest organizer of the Vishwa Vaishnav Raj Sabha. He also organized the Radha Damodar temple and seva, and he organized the first book distribution party, if you know the story. He ordered his top students, his 3 top students, Srinivas, Shamananda, and Narottam, to take the books that he had ordered be copied. He insisted that all the Goswamis' works, including his own, be copied and placed in a library at Radha Damodar temple. He made a library of all the Goswamis' books. And then he insisted that another copy be made and they take it out for distribution in Bengal. But on the way to Bengal, if you know the story, they were robbed by a king who had an astrologer who told him, there are 3 sadhus on the road and they have an immense treasure. And of course the king thought he meant jewels, but it was the Goswami's literature. And they were robbed. They woke up one morning and the trunk, the treasure chest was gone. And they were just in so much anxiety. Srinivas, he was the head of the party. He took responsibility to find it, and he did. He found the king, and he converted the king and his dacoits who had robbed them to Vaishnavas. It's quite a story. So that's kind of an organizational seed of founder Acharya. Something organized happened in the 1540s, 1545. 7 years later, in that Sabha, the Vishva Vaishnav Raj Sabha, another seed was planted when Srila Rupa Goswami, there he is, Kandiya, writing and weeping and writing and weeping. He finished, according to Srila Prabhupada in the Nectar of Devotion, he finished writing Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in the year 1552. You can pass the mic right back. Prabhu, read this.
In his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami identified the 4 principles of devotional service as sadhu, vartamanu, vartanam, which Srila Prabhupada later translated in the Nectar of Devotion as following in the footsteps of great Acharyas, teachers, under the direction of the spiritual master.
Yes, following in the footsteps of great Acharyas, under the direction of the spiritual master. Remember how we learned in lesson 1? All gurus in one sense are one because they preach the message of Krishna, but they also differ. They play different roles, they have different levels of qualification, and they make different levels of commitment to us. Some just introduce us, some initiate us, some instruct us. And of course, there's a lot of overlap in all of that. So Prabhupada, in the introduction, he also echoed the way he unpacked sadhu vartmanu vartanam there, the way he spelled it out. He says in the introduction also, quote, in our mental activities, we should always try to think of Krishna and try to plan how to please him, following in the footsteps of the great acharyas and the personal spiritual master. See, there's a distinction being made there. Observation. As a child may see his parents as everything at first, but then matures to see them in perspective, so a disciple may first see his spiritual parents and relatives as everything, but then matures to appreciate them in relation to, quote, the great acharyas. Now let's look at how one famous disciple saw his great initiating guru in relation to an even greater acharya. So if our parents and relatives are actually good, they'll introduce us to greater and greater people. They're teachers. They should act as teachers. They're the first gurus after all. So now we're going to get an example of this seed. This was a kind of philosophical seed. There's a beta. There's a difference. There's an abheda. They're one. In one sense, all gurus are one. But there's also beta. There's difference. And there's certainly a difference, usually, between one's personal spiritual master and great acharyas. So here's the cultural seed. Okay, 1545, the Vishva Vaishnav Raj Sabha was founded, organizational seed. 1552, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was published, which included that philosophical seed distinction. And now, circa, most scholars agree around 1560, we'll just leave that off. Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who was one of Jiva Goswami's top students, finished writing a very famous song collection, whose songs we sing every day in our temples. Prarthana. When we sing Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More, that's Prarthana. When we sing Sri Guru Charana Padma, Prarthana. When somebody disappears, Ye Andila Premadhana, Prarthana. So in Prarthana, let's see, Mataji, you want to?
In his Prarthana collection, Srila Narottam Das Thakur wrote in the fourth verse of Psalm 17 a song for Srila Rupa Goswami.
Prabhu Lokanatha Kabe Sangelanya Jabe Sri Rupera Pada Padme More Samartibe, which means in plain English,
When will my Lord, Master, Lokanath Goswami, take me with him and place me at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami?
Very interesting. Now, does anyone know the story of how Srila Narottam Das Thakur became the only Diksha disciple of Lokanath Goswami? Who wants to tell the story? Just briefly. Mataji, you know. I think it's on. You just have to speak.
He was cleaning the stool of...
Okay, then you're starting in the middle now. Let's start in the beginning. You hold that. So, Lokanath Goswami was a famous person. He was a very prominent devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Now, when Lord Chaitanya disappeared, Lokanath was so distraught that he just withdrew. And he took a vow. And the vow was, I will never accept disciples. Now, when Narottam Das Thakur came to Vrindavan and eventually became one of Sri Jiva's top students, Jiva Goswami noticed that Narottam Das Thakur was really attracted to Lokanath Goswami. So Jiva told told Narottam, I want you to approach Lokanath Goswami for Diksha, because I can see you've given your heart to Lokanath. Is it not so? Yes, it is. So you should approach him. So he did. And Jiva even knew that Lokanath had taken this vow, but still he told Narottam to approach Jiva. And Lokanath said, I'm sorry, I don't accept disciples. End of story, right? And Narottam was really upset, and he kept trying, but Lokanath kept rebuffing him. Finally, Narottam, who was the son of a king, who was a prince, said to himself, well, I'm a prince, and I know because I come from a privileged background, I have some false pride. So to rectify this, I'm going to do some menial service for Lokanath Goswami. Here's where Mataji comes in. And then what happened? Every morning, louder. Louder.
Every morning, when Lokanath Goswami passed through that way from that place, slowly Narottam Das Thakur would come there and clean the place and cover it with water. Every day, every next day, Lokanath Goswami would wonder who was doing this. So one day after passing through, he was hiding there in the bushes.
Actually, this went on for a whole year, according to the Narottam Vilas. And what happened? It was just before he'd come to pass. It was about an hour before he'd come to do his morning ablutions, evacuate and bathe. Narottam would go there and make everything nice and clean, the earth, the water. And the first day, you're right, the first day, Lokanath Goswami did notice this, but he was so absorbed in his Nirjan Bhajan, he just put it out of his mind. Whatever it is, it is. But this went on for a whole year. And finally, Lokanath couldn't take it anymore. He said, no, I can't accept this service. I'm a renunciate, and I don't know who's doing this, but I'm going to come early and spy to see who's doing this. So he came an hour earlier, and sure enough, what did he see?
So Narottam Das Thakur was cleaning the place for it.
Well, he came. He came to do it. But Lokanath was hiding behind a tree. This is all in the Narottam Vilas. Hiding behind a tree. And then he emerged and he said, "Who is that?" And he couldn't, it was dark, so he couldn't quite see Narottam. And then finally he saw, "Narottam, it's you! Why are you doing this? You're the son of a king. I can't let you do this. Don't do this anymore." And Narottam, what did Narottam do? Do you know? He just fell at Lokanath's feet and begged him, "Please, my life has no meaning unless you accept me as your disciple." Very reminiscent of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Gorakishore later on. Very same mood, similar mood. And so what did Lokanath say? He said, "No, I'm sorry, I don't accept disciples." But this time Narottam was so, practically suicidal and so sincere that Lokanath, he made an exception. "Okay, I will take one disciple, only you." So imagine this. Narottam is Lokanath's only child, right? Is anybody the parent of an only child here? I am. Anybody have an only child? Okay, so you know how strong that attachment is, right? To the only child. So they're like this, guru and disciple. And yet, look at this, in the 4th stanza of Song 17, "When will my Lord and Master, Prabhu Lokanath Goswami, take me with him, Srila Pera Pada Padme, and place me at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami?" How do you think Lokanath Goswami feels about that? Does he feel minimized? Does he feel jumped over? Does he feel slighted? Does he feel like, Narottam's going outside my zone? Couldn't resist an ISKCON joke. How does Lokanath feel about that? Anybody know? Let me give you a hint. Who is Srila Rupa Goswami in relation to both of them? What is he called? Do you know? I'll give you the reference here. This is from CC Adi Leela, chapter 5, text 203, purport. Prabhupada writes, quote, "Srila Rupa Goswami is described as the Bhakti Rasa Acharya, or one who knows the essence of devotional service. His famous book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is the science of devotional service. And by reading this book, one can understand the meaning of devotional service." So the founder Acharya phrase was not there yet, because the English, thank God, were not here yet. Right? But they had this Rasacharya phrase. As soon as Rupa Goswami published that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, even though he wasn't the eldest Goswami, he wasn't the most renounced, he wasn't the most prolific in terms of literary output, he was immediately recognized, Prabhupada says, as the chief of the 6 Goswamis, because he was the one who was most expert in relishing the mellows of pure devotional service to Krishna. So Srila Rupa Goswami is the Rasacharya of all the devotees in the Sri Vishva Vaishnav Raj Sabha. So how does Lokanath Goswami feel? Well, he feels privileged and pleased to bring his only Diksha disciple closer to Srila Rupa Goswami. That's his duty, that's his function, that's his dharma. That's what Diksha gurus do, and Shiksha gurus. They bring their disciples closer to the group leader. The Ramanuja is called the group leader, the Uddharak, we say founder Acharya, whatever, it's the same idea. So that's kind of a cultural seed of founder Acharya in that incident with Narottam and Lokanath. Now, believe it or not, those, let's see, it only took 15 years, from 1545 to 1560, for 3 seeds of founder Acharya to be planted, right? The founding of the Sabha, the publication of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the song by Narottam. We have to go a full 340 years forward to get the next seeds, because by Lord Chaitanya's mysterious will, the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava, all of Vaishnavism was disgraced for hundreds of years by so many Upasampradayas, as we know. It wasn't until Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur came on the scene in the 19th century and identified and exposed the owls, the bowls, the Sakhi Bekis, the Gauranga Nagaris, so many groups. There was 13 of them they identified. And then he found a copy of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which had been lost. He found one in Oriya, and then it translated it into Bengali. Single-handedly, the Thakur convinced the Bengali aristocracy, the so-called Bhadralok, to take a fresh look at their own tradition, teachings, and see that it's vastly superior to the British propaganda of, the Shakespeare and the Bible. That was the pillars of Western civilization. And then the Thakur reached out. He heard that Western intellectuals were interested in Sanskrit and in Vedic philosophy. So in the 1890s, he sent a book that he wrote in Sanskrit called Sri Krishna Samhita to one American transcendentalist, famous Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Emerson was really grateful to get the book, but then he wrote a letter back to the Thakur and said, "Thank you so much. I don't read Sanskrit. Do you have anything in English?" So that letter inspired Bhaktivinoda to write his book, Sri Chaitanya, His Life and Precepts, which he sent to the West in 1896 to Emerson and to McGill University in Australia and England. So the Thakur single-handedly revived the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, convincing his own fellow Bengali Vaishnavas to take a fresh look at their own tradition. Plus he reached out to the West. He was a super guru. But he knew he didn't have time to manifest the movement that he wanted to see, to start making good on the prediction, what prediction had been made in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Prithivite achayat nagaradigram sarvatra prachar haibe muranam. In as many towns and villages as there are on the surface of the earth, my holy name will be preached. Chaitanya Bhagavat, Anchalila, chapter 4, text 126. So he prayed to the Lord to send someone from your personal staff, Prabhupada said. And the fourth son of Bhaktivinoda and Srimati Bhagavati Devi was Bhimo Prasad, who later became Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. Now, in 1900, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Bengali work, Harinama Chintamani, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sowed the literary seeds of the future English Sanskrit phrase, founder Acharya, in chapter 6, disregarding the Guru. So Harinama Chintamani is all about the glories of the holy name, but it's also about the 10 offenses. And the third offense is Guroravagyaha, to disobey the spiritual master, consider him an ordinary person. And we're just going to give you the seeds now. We're going to give you a few words from a couple of verses in that chapter which planted the literary seeds of the concept that eventually became Founder Acharya. So where's the mic? Okay. So, Mataji, you want to read? You don't want to read? Here you go. Read that. Sampradayera adi gurura.
Sampradaya adi gurura, the original guru of the Sampradaya.
Okay.
Shiksha guru Kapishita, the Sampradaya, Sampradayas instructive gurus.
Right. So first you got the adi guru, like on our Sampradaya it's Lord Brahma. Then you get all the previous great acharyas instructing gurus, and then
Acharya, meaning one who is the original Acharya of the Sampradaya branch.
And then
Guru Shiromani, the first one of all the gurus.
yes. Now a little later in the lesson we're going to show you how all those seeds fructified beautifully in translation in 1900. Of course, 1900 it was in Bengali. It was only very recently that those seeds, that work was translated into English by our ISKCON scholars like Banu Maharaj and Sarvabhavana Prabhu. So in 1900 the seeds appeared, and Bengali Vaishnavas at least could understand what the Thakur was saying. The Thakur, he envisioned the whole Krishna consciousness movement all the way from a GBC. Where did Bhaktivinoda take the GBC idea from? Do you know? British Railways. British Railways had this governing body committee. So the Thakur thought, oh, that's a good idea. That's what we need too. If we're going to have a worldwide, if it's going to every town and village, that means we're going to have a multiple guru culture, supervised by a governing body, in case anybody goes off the rails, goes off the deep end, as we say in English. He envisioned everything from the GBC level all the way down to Namahat, the marketplace of the holy name. He's the sweeper of the marketplace. He was super. But he didn't have time to manifest the movement he envisioned, even though he saw all of us going to Mayapur from all over the world to chant Jai Sachinandan Gora Hari. He envisioned the Adbhuta Mandir that's now arising in the Gangetic plain, the Ganges plains. So he passed away in 1914. 4 years after he passed away, his fourth son, Bimal Prasad Dutt, who had become, in 1918, 4 years after his father passed away, Siddhanta Saraswati sat down in front of a picture of his Diksha Guru, Srila Gorakishore Das Babaji, and accepted sannyas through the picture. Now if you're a ray of Vishnu, you can do that. Don't imitate that, right? If you can chant 1 billion names over 9 years in Sri Dham Mayapur, you've seen the pictures of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta chanting, and he's holding an umbrella sometimes. He didn't even care if it was raining, and he didn't want to fix the roof, so he just held an umbrella and kept chanting. So that was the symbolic beginning of his Gaudiya mission. He started to manifest what his father envisioned, a worldwide movement. And it says in Bhakti Vikash Maharaj's Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhav that he initiated over 60,000 disciples, founded 64 Gaudiya Mats. And he revived his father's, his father actually revived the Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha, and then Bhakti Siddhanta further solidified that and expanded it. That was the first name of the Gaudiya Mat, Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha, and then other names like Gaudiya Mission, Gaudiya Mat came in. And then in 1927, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta revived a journal of his father's that his father had this journal called Sajjana Toshini, for the satisfaction of the devotees, the Sajjanas, which ran from 1881 to 1904, and then in 1927 appeared to be an annual, number 1 of the English edition. The English reincarnation of Sajjana Toshini was the harmonist. The English Sanskrit phrase founder Acharya first appeared in the Harmonist, the English journal of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Gaudiya Math. Now it wasn't in this issue. This was the first English issue, the Harmonist. Saraswati Thakur said that's the free translation of Sajjana Toshini. It was in the next year, not the next year, but in a few years, 1930 edition of the Harmonist. What was happening was that a wealthy disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had constructed a fabulous marble palace in Calcutta as the new headquarters of the Gaudiya mission in Bug Bazar Junction. So to launch that, the Harmonist described over 3 articles how the Gaudiya mission is manifesting the will of Lord Chaitanya and the crucial role that this headquarters plays in the divine manifestation of Lord Chaitanya's will, the Gaudiya mission. So let's see, how about Prabhuji, you want to read? In the back? Okay, we have a willing runner for the mic. So read from, you don't want to read? Okay, Prabhuji, read from here down to here, okay?
The Gaudiya is also identical with his founder Acharya. The associates, followers, and couple of his divine grace are links of himself. None of them claim to be anything but only supported life of this single community. This unconditional causeless spontaneous submission to the inherit is found to be not only compatible with but also absolutely necessary for the fullest freedom of initiative of the subordinate links.
Okay. Now that was a little hard to follow. It's because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote in very complicated English, and so did his disciple Professor Nishikant Sanyal, who was the co-editor of the Harmonist. So they were like echoes of each other. Sometimes Sanyal would write an article and then sign Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's name. Sometimes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would write an article and sign Professor Sanyal's name. So there it is, the founder Acharya with 2 Y's. In other words, the founder Acharya, he's the life and soul of the mission. Later on, Prabhupada would tell us, ISKCON's my body, the BBT is my heart, you are all the limbs of my body. Same idea. The founder Acharya is the life and soul of his mission. Now a few years later, in 1933, the crowning glory of the Gaudiya mission, the finest hour of the Gaudiya mission, was when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta sent 3 of his leading preachers to the West. He actually, for the first time, took Gaudiya Vaishnavism outside Bharatvarsha. But before he let these 3 preachers go, he insisted they have a book. So he asked Professor Sanyal to write a book. It was a projected 3-volume trilogy, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And in the early 1930s, before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta sent some of his learned sannyasis to preach abroad, he commissioned his scholarly disciple, Professor Nishikant Sanyal, who was initiated as Narayan Das, Bhakti Sudhakar Narayan Das, to compile a book about the life and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The book was written with the gravity and sophistication and literary excellence required to impress the intelligentsia of the West. Now, After Professor Sanyal finished writing the manuscript, then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta took that manuscript and he went on an editing retreat for 2 months down in, I was just in Coimbatore doing the seminar in Tamil Nadu, and there's one of these British hill stations, Nilgiri. He went to this Nilgiri hill station and just locked himself in a room for a couple of months and scrupulously edited the manuscript. So Sri Krishna Chaitanya is a collaboration of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Professor Sanyal. 1 volume was published, and then strangely enough, the 2nd volume didn't come out until 2004, just 11 years ago, posthumously published way after that time. And apparently a 3rd volume was never written. But it's in this Sri Krishna Chaitanya book that you get more of an understanding of the position of the founder Acharya right in the table of contents. So how about Mataji here? You want to read? Well, you got a microphone. It'll help your voice. Everybody's too embarrassed, huh? Okay, I know this lady's not embarrassed. Come on. Okay, read from the table of contents.
The systems of Sri Vishnu Swami, Sri Nibbana, Sri Ramanuja and Sri Madhva are connected to the ancient times by the recognition of the remote authority of the eternal ancient teachers, namely Lakshmi, Brahma, Rudra and the 4 Kumaras respectively.
Go ahead.
The 4 founder acharyas of the Iron Age profess to preach the views of those original teachers of the religion.
So what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had only implied in Harinama Chintamani. In Harinama Chintamani, the Thakur had suggested a connection between the Adi Gurus of the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. By the way, here they are. The Adi Gurus. He suggested that they were connected to their super empowered representatives in the Kali Yuga. So you have, Lord Shiva, Rudra, and the Rudra Sampradaya. Lord Shiva is the Adi Guru. Then you have Vishnu Swami, who's Lord Shiva's empowered representative in our Kali Yuga. So the Thakur had only implied this connection, but in Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Professor Sanyal and Siddhanta Saraswati made the connection very explicit, that these people like Vishnu Swami and Nimbarka and Ramanuja and Madhva, they were explicitly empowered by the Adi Gurus of their Sampradaya to reinvigorate the Sampradaya, to take in a dynamic new direction. So that's how it looks visually. And notice that the philosophy connected with each founder Acharya, there's the technical Sanskrit words, identifies a particular aspect of the relationship between the Lord and His energies. So some are stressing, the oneness, and some are stressing the oneness and the qualitative oneness, quantitative difference. Madhva, he's really on a crusade against Mayavad. You see him like this. He's not flashing the victory sign there. He's saying there's 2, right? And don't you forget it. There's Ishvara and Jiva. Has anybody been to Udupi? You been? Okay. So you see Madhva in bas-relief, very powerful image of Madhva outside Sri Krishna Mat, right? In Udupi. And he's really making a statement. That's why every 2 years in Udupi they have this paryaya. It's the changing of the seva of the mat. And ISKCON devotees are invited because they know that our founder Acharya's pranam mantra is similar crusade. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So Madhva, he's really pounding the Mayavadis. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the 1890s, he wrote another book in Bengali that the Gaudiya Mat people knew about. So when Sri Krishna Chaitanya was written by Professor Sanyal and edited by Siddhanta Saraswati, they knew about this other book that Bhaktivinoda had written called, you've probably heard of it, Sri Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, right? The glories of Navadvip Dham. This is an incredible visionary work. It's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's vision of Lord Nityananda giving Srila Jiva Goswami a guided tour of Navadvip. You've got to be empowered to write something like that, right? And so in this book, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes how before Lord Chaitanya appeared, he actually went to all the founder acharyas of these lines who appeared before him, you know, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarka, Ramanuja, Madhva. And he told them that he was going to appear after them and preach a philosophy that was going to incorporate two elements from each of their philosophies. And here's what it says in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. Quote, "From Madhva, the Lord said, he would accept Madhva's complete defeat of the Mayavad philosophy and Madhva's service to the deity of Krishna. From Ramanuja, the Lord said he would accept the concept of bhakti unpolluted by karma and gyan, as well as Ramanuja's service to the devotees. From Vishnu Swami's teachings, the Lord said he would accept the sentiment of exclusive dependence on Krishna, plus the path of raga bhakti, spontaneous devotion. And from Nimbarka, the Lord said he would embrace the necessity of taking shelter of Radha and the high esteem for the gopis' love of Krishna." Now, Professor Sanyal, when he wrote Sri Krishna Chaitanya, he knew about Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, so he wrote on page 164 that each of those philosophies, these sampradaya philosophies, although they're correct, they're sound, they're accurate, they're correct, they're incomplete. And he said, the philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, quote, reconciles, harmonizes, and perfects the four founder Acharya philosophies as, what's the technical Sanskrit word for Lord Chaitanya's? Achintya Beda Beda Tattva, right? That synthesizes and perfects all of these different angles, focusing on they only focus on one aspect of the relationship between the Lord and His energies. Lord Chaitanya tied it all up. The Lord is inconceivably and simultaneously one with but different from His energies. So, now the next slide identifies the crucial role founder acharyas play in their disciplic successions. So we kind of already know it, but let's sort of take a closer look at it. Yeah, there's our two greatest examples. Ramanuja. What are the dates on Ramanuja? Anybody know? 1017 to 1137. We're coming up to his millennial in 2 years. Not centennial, millennial. So how have the Ramanujis kept it together all this time? Well, let's look at that. In the Lakshmi Sampradaya's Ramanuja branch, their scripture, Sri Prapanamrita Tapana, describes the founder Acharya as the Uddharak, the deliverer of everyone. He's the Jagat Guru. Those gurus who follow the Uddharak in disciplic succession are called Upakarak, benefactor gurus who engage their disciples in executing Ramanuja's mission, studying his Mahagranthas, the great books he left, and worshipping his Murti. Does that sound familiar? That's what we do. In ISKCON, we study Prabhupada's books every day, we have Guru Puja for his Murti, and we execute his Sankirtan mission in the service of Lord Chaitanya. And anybody, okay, you've been to Udupi, you said you were in Udupi, who said? You went to Udupi. Did you see the seat that Madhva sat on to give class? Madhva's seat is still there. That the same seat that he hid the asan where Madhva gave Bhagavatam, it's still there. They're really founder Acharya focused. I lived in and around Udupi for about 2 years. So I got to know the Madhvas. I used to go to the temple and sit in the Sri Krishna Mat, chant my japa, and watch the whole town come in to take darshan. People sometimes, whether the high and the mighty and the most humbly placed person, sometimes they come in with their cows, they take darshan. So they'd bring the baby elephants would come in, you ever see, in the temple? And the trainer has the elephant get down on one knee, and then the elephant looks in the deity room. One day I looked in the deity room. It's not so easy to see. It's not like a nice ISKCON temple darshan. You have to really look. I looked in the deity room, and next to Sri Krishna, there was this cat sitting there like this, like he was the guard or something, So I found a pujari who spoke English. And I said, Prabhuji, there's a cat on the altar. Yes, Prabhu, that's to keep away the rat. Okay. So, and if you ask anybody in Udupi who they are, they'll say, I am Madhvite. Madhva lived 11-something to 12-something, right? So, that's how they keep it together. So, that means that for ISKCON, we may note with profit how the Ramanujis and the Madhvas have survived and thrived over the centuries by keeping their founder Acharya front and center as all followers' foundational master. I was just in Coimbatore, and when I taught the seminar there, Bhaktivinoda Maharaj said, yes, I had a Ramanuji sannyasi visiting us here at the mandir in Coimbatore, and the way he introduced himself was this. He said the Tamil, Adiyan Ramanuja Dasyan, I am your servant, the servant of Ramanuja. And then if he wants to say anything more about his identity, then he'll tell you who his Diksha Guru is, his Shiksha Gurus, and then, what time we are in the cosmos. We're in the second prarardha of the day of Brahma. And anyway, so we should notice that. That's how they go on. I mean, as I say, and they're only local and regional, as I mentioned. We're international. We've got so much diversity. We need more unity, and Prabhupada provides that unity. He's our common connection. Okay. Now we're going to end the lesson. First of all, we're going to take a look at Bhaktivinoda Thakur's literary seeds now in full glory, in their full blossom. There's the Thakur. Srila Bhaktivinoda's founder Acharya seeds fructify. Where's the mic? Okay, who would like to read? Like to read? Okay. Okay, here's how it comes out in translation.
One should first of all accept the instructions of the Sampradaya Adibhu, the original Guru of the Sampradaya, and believe
accordingly. Okay, so first you have the Adi Guru. Sampradaya Adi Guru. So ours is Lord Brahma. So that's the first thing. And then the next?
In the disciplined succession of the Vaishnavas, the previous Acharyas are established respectfully as the Shiksha Gurus of the Sampradaya.
Okay, then you have that phrase, Shiksha Guru Pratishtitaha, previous Acharyas, famous, highlight, prominent Shiksha Gurus. And then?
However, the Acharya, the founder Acharya.
So there it is, the Adi Acharya, the founder Acharya.
Our original Guru of the disciplined Siddhaya is appropriately worshipped and respected as the Guru Shiromani.
Topmost.
The topmost crown jewel of the spiritual masters. His perfect philosophical conclusions are to be followed by all in his succession. Any contrary instructions will not be accepted.
Yes. So notice the relationship between a sampradaya's gurus. It's Adi Guru, Shiksha Gurus, and Founder Acharya. The Founder Acharya's role is very pivotal. He becomes the touchstone, the touchstone in the original sense of the word. Touchstone originally meant a stone that you could test gold, to see the carat of gold, the quality of the gold. So the Founder Acharya is that person against whom we measure all teachers and teachings. Okay, and his role is a pivotal role. Again, I think I mentioned last night, all the relationships we have in ISKCON with our Diksha Guru, Shiksha Gurus, parents and children, husbands and wives, friends and friends, you name it. They all should revolve around the Founder Acharya. He's the one that gives life and meaning to all our relationships. And to the extent that he is the center, that's a healthy, thriving, ever-fresh relationship. Okay, and now we end the lesson by taking a look at summary symptoms of Founder Acharya in Harinama Chintamani. I owe a debt to His Holiness Shivaram Swami. Does Shivaram Maharaj ever come here? Does he come? Shivaram? No? Shivaram. Not very much. Anyway, he's a great devotee. He's got a great project in Hungary. He's a prolific writer, leader. He's great. He's a great person. So he wrote a book 16 years ago called The Shiksha Guru. Anybody ever read this book? Good book. Shivaram Maharaj was very compassionately trying to help ISKCON deepen its Shiksha culture, or get a Shiksha culture, and it's more relevant than ever. And in the Shiksha Guru, Shivaram Swami also studied Harinama Chintamani in translation, English translation, and he noticed 6 symptoms of a special kind of Shiksha Guru, Founder Acharya. So we're going to look at these symptoms in summary. Let's see, where's the mic? Prabhuji right here? Want to read? Hey, right here. No. Anyway, as you like. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Number 1.
Possess great spiritual strength.
Yes, and now we're coming close to the next lesson, which is all about our Founder Acharya, so I think I'll take the liberty of relating that to our Prabhupada. We couldn't keep up with him. I mean, here was a person who was in his, he came when he was 70, and then he left when he was 81, and we couldn't keep up with him. He'd be traveling all over the world. Did I mention this last night about he didn't know what jet lag was. He didn't know what jet lag was. But we did, we felt it. I mean, I travel all over the world and I feel it. It takes me about a week to recover from some of these long, multi-time zone flights. Prabhupada didn't know what it was. Great spiritual strength. Because, just like we say in English, love can move mountains. What to speak of the highest levels of Krishna praying. So Prabhupada, nothing could stop him. All over the world. Okay, and next bullet point.
His teachings take precedence over all others and are compulsory for his followers.
Now precedence is a tricky word. It's not that the Founder Acharya thinks that he's surpassing the previous Acharyas. That's not what it means. Just like in Chaitanya Chaitamrita it's described that Balabhacharya went to Lord Chaitanya and said he'd written a commentary that has surpassed the commentary of Sridhar Swami. And what was Lord Chaitanya's response to that? You know? You know? Yeah, say it.
He should drown it in the river.
He should what?
Drown it in the river.
Drown
Drown it in the river.
Drown the commentary? Or himself? Well, first of all, he said, oh, you've surpassed the Swami? Swami means master. It can also mean husband. You think you've surpassed your Swami? You're just like a prostitute then. He was mocking him. This is nonsense. And Vallabha Bhatta was chastened. He considered Lord Chaitanya as Lord and Master, so he took it to heart. So it's not that the founder Acharya thinks he surpassed the previous Acharyas, but because he's empowered by the previous Acharyas to take all their teachings and represent them for the new time and give everyone access to the previous Acharyas. Therefore, it's his shiksha should be taken as foundational and primary and essential, crucial, compulsory for his followers. Okay. Another bullet point, symptom of founder Acharya.
Holds a unique post.
Unique, one of a kind. You don't replace a founder Acharya. Sometimes people say to me when I'm presenting the seminar, "Oh, Sureshwar, you mean we'll never have another Mahabhagavat or Nityasiddha or Shaktivesh Avatar?" Or so what do I say? Hey, bring them on. We need a few of those people. We could use some more Mahabhagavats. We could use some more Shakti. We could use some more Nityasiddhas. And what will they do if they're real? They'll be so happy to cooperate with Srila Prabhupada's movement. And they'll do great things. But you don't replace a founder Acharya. This is what Prabhupada's godbrothers failed to understand. And that's why they competed to see who's going to replace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and they all fell down. All those parties, those camps, because they weren't authorized. It was only in the last 24 hours of his life that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, "Work conjointly, form a GBC," per his father's vision. "We have no desire but to be the dust of the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Raghunath." You don't replace him. You just work, you cooperate to serve his mission, and you continue initiating. They didn't understand that. Holds a unique post, one of a kind. Okay, next bullet point.
Is the Acharya or leader of all Vaishnavas when physically present.
Right, so that's kind of an extension of the previous point. In Prabhupada's time, you know, as you will see in the course of the seminar, if I come back, if you want more, Prabhupada had to speak and write some very strong things to protect ISKCON, as you may be aware. Prabhupada was bound and determined that ISKCON not repeat the same mistakes of the Gaudiya Math. So Prabhupada, he spoke and he wrote some pretty heavy things. And he knew that it must have offended some of his godbrothers. So at the end of Prabhupada's life, when he was no longer in the mood of a madhyam, he was in the mood of an uttam. He was always uttam, but he had to come down to preach, so he had to call a spade and make distinctions and say strong things. So at the end, on his disappearance bed, he said to Bhakti True Maharaj, "Call all my godbrothers, I have to apologize to them." Because at the end, Prabhupada was in the mood of gratitude, appreciation, you know, and he wanted to beg forgiveness from his godbrothers for doing what he had to do. So a lot of them came. And there was one ashram Maharaj who sort of became the spokesman for whoever came. And Prabhupada first of all said, "Please forgive me, I am Mahapatita, I am greatly fallen." And Ashram Maharaj said, "No, you're Mahapatita Pavana. You're a savior of the greatly fallen." No, Prabhupada said, "I became too proud. So many disciples, so much Lakshmi, so many temples, so many books." No. When you preached all over the world, opulence just followed you like a maidservant. You never became proud. It just was a byproduct of your unparalleled, unprecedented preaching. So at least at the end, because Prabhupada disarmed them so much by his humility, there was a kind of reconciliation with the godbrothers. And it was nice. So, as the leader, even when physically present, it's usually when a great person, during the great person's time, usually he's misunderstood. He's ahead of his time. What do we say? What's that old, there's an anonymous saying. no good deed goes unpunished. Right? Or like Joan of Arc. There's an interesting recording. Prabhupada's giving a class, and at the end of the class, this is in Seattle, 1968, just a few people sitting at Swamiji's feet. Oh, they were calling him Prabhupada right now. And you hear a lady say, Srila Prabhupada, is Joan of Arc in the Srimad Bhagavatam? And Prabhupada says, Joan of Arc? You want to see Joan of Arc in Srimad Bhagavatam? And then Prabhupada says, why don't you understand that Joan of Arc's whole life is Srimad Bhagavatam? He's very liberally drawing, embracing Joan of Arc as a fellow Bhagavat, a theist. So, I don't know if you saw the Joan of Arc movies or read her books, she was considered a religious fanatic, basically, in her own time. And her own countrymen, the French, they finally betrayed her and gave her to the British, and she was burned at the stake. And then centuries later, and after she's persecuted and burned at the stake, the Roman Catholic Church canonizes her as a saint. First they kill you and they canonize you. This is Kali Yuga. This is the way it works. Okay, so it's not common when somebody really and truly becomes a legend in his own time and is appreciated and is not killed or maligned somehow. Okay, another symptom of founder Acharya is
awards power of attorney to his followers who strictly adhere to his teachings.
Okay, power of attorney, power of representation. If I give you power of attorney, you can you can represent me at the bank, you can represent me in court. Yeah. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said you can know how great a Vaishnava is by how many other Vaishnavas that Vaishnava creates, how much of a touchstone he is. And you can see what Prabhupada has created so many wonderful Vaishnavas. Okay, so lesson outcomes. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify organizational, philosophical, cultural, and literary seeds of the founder Acharya principle as they appeared over time in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. And again, don't worry, you're going to get, if you want, you can get the notes for the lessons, for our Sambandha lessons at the end. I will give them to Kirti Nitai. We should be able to recount the founder Acharya, how the founder Acharya phrase advented in the 1930s. Identify the unique position and role of the founder Acharya in all four Vaishnava Sampradayas. And finally, we should be able to identify symptoms of a founder Acharya noted in the Harinama Chintamani. Now tomorrow night, an hour earlier, don't forget, we're going to start at 6 tomorrow night. Having looked at the origin, characteristics, and historical development of the founder Acharya principle, we are now ready to examine how our Srila Prabhupada emerged as the founder Acharya of a fresh branch of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, ISKCON. So that is the title slide of tomorrow night's lesson, and there's a reason I have that particular image up there, and you'll see tomorrow night. So now I'll sit down and take your questions and comments. And remember, please focus your questions on the points of the lesson. Prabhuji. Oh.
I'm just wondering, at the time when Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote about these symptoms of the founder Acharya, in fact there was no precedence. I mean, he didn't have a founder Acharya in mind when he mentioned about these 5 symptoms. So could you please elaborate on that? And specifically, did he also mention this 5th point, that founder Acharya actually confers the power of Prabhu on his, although of course in my heart and mind it sounds very, very logical.
Yeah. Okay, well, for that particular slide, I do confess to not having done what they call primary source research. I depended on Shivaram Swami's analysis of Bhanu Swami's translation. So I don't read Bengali, I didn't go to that. But your question, Prabhu, connects to, see, after I present this lesson, I fully expect someone to ask, Prabhu, we saw the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, what about the Gaudiya Sampradaya? Where does that fit in? So that's kind of a related point. Now, the answer to that is given very elaborately in the Gaudiya literature. Because when they launched that Bug Bazaar temple in Calcutta in 1930, that was a big event, and the October, November, and December issues of the Harmonists do this whole elaborate, it's called ecclesiological explanation of how the Gaudiya mission is manifesting the divine will of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they say in these articles, and this is also in that Founder Acharya booklet that was distributed last year. I don't know if you read it. The GBC published it. Anyway, so the Gaudiya, according to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Professor Sanyal and the Gaudiya Mat scholars, that in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, which of course is an extension of the Brahmabhadva Sampradaya, Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? In the Gaudiyas accept him. And then who are the Adi Gurus in the Gaudiya Sampradaya? They say it's the 6 Goswamis, Shad Goswami. It's like you had Chatusana, the Kumara Sampradaya. Because Lord Chaitanya only wrote down Shikshastak, so he depended on the 6 Goswamis to articulate and elaborate the philosophy, which they did masterfully. And then the whole thing went underground for hundreds of years. So then you have in the Harmonists, you say, so now, and that's where the Founder Acharya appeared in that October 30 issue of the Harmonists, where Professor Sanyal is saying, and now the Founder Acharya in the Gaudiya Sampradaya is none other than Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Now, interestingly enough, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, although he allowed himself with confidence to be referred to as the Founder Acharya of the Gaudiya mission, he personally never used the phrase introducing himself the way our Prabhupada did later. Prabhupada would say, my name is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, I'm the Founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And the reason Siddhanta Saraswati didn't personally do that was because his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, would identify those 4 Vaishnava Founder Acharyas, he would call them Sampradaya Acharyas. And Siddhanta Saraswati knew he would be perceived as presumptuous to call himself a Founder Acharya if, on the level of Ramanuja Madhva. Although with confidence he allowed Sanyal to call him that in the Harmonist. Plus, here's another thing. It's very clear, we're not going to have time to do it this time, but in the very first lesson of the Abhideya phase of our seminar, it's called His Mission's Roots. It's very clear from what Prabhupada told us that his Guru Maharaj, who was the Founder Acharya of the Gaudiya mission, could see what was going to become of his own mission. It's very clear. He confided, he told this to our Srila Prabhupada. Agunjvalbi, there will be fire in the mutt, and the fire of dissension will spread and destroy. I wish I could sell the marble off this Bug Bazaar palace. Now my leading preachers, they're simply fighting over the rooms. They become mad after material opulence. He could see what was going to happen to his own mission. Abhay Charan Aravinda Das, if you ever get money, print books. So Siddhanta Saraswati, at one and the same time, he could see what was going to become of his own mission, that he was the founder Acharya of, and he could see in the person of Abhay Charan Aravinda Das someone who was capable of reviving the mission later. That's very clear from what Prabhupada told us. It's fascinating. Yeah, from the way Prabhupada told us that, it's quite prophetic. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was a visionary. And even though, again, the Ramanujis, they don't say founder Acharya because they speak Tamil and Sanskrit. But they do call Ramanuja their Udarak. So we have, right in the precedence of the Madhvas and the Ramanujis, people who have the concept of the founder Acharya. And all the gurus who come after him are cooperating to prosecute his mission, worship his murti, study his books. That's very clear. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he revived the Gaudiya Sampradaya, he was really keen to make good on the prophecy. In every town and village, my holy name will be preached. It wasn't happening at all. So he was envisioning the whole thing. And in Harinama Chintamani, his phrase was Adyacharya. Adyacharya Yanihi, one who is the Adi Acharya of a fresh branch now. And that's what he wanted. He didn't have time to manifest it. So he prayed for a ray of Vishnu and he got it. And his son manifested that branch, which with hindsight now, it kind of looks like, as we'd say, a beta version of what became ISKCON. If the Gaudiya Math people had obeyed their founder Acharya, we'd be in the Gaudiya mission. And you'll see in the next lesson, when Prabhupada came to America, it's called Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. When he came to America, that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to revive the Gaudiya mission. The furthest thing from his mind was being the founder Acharya of anything. That was not his intention. It's really fascinating. The next lesson is all about, how did I put it? Oh, anyway. It's all about how Lord Chaitanya revealed to Srila Prabhupada his position, what he had to do. And then as Prabhupada was realizing that, how Prabhupada revealed that to us. Slowly, he was spoon-feeding us. He went from obscurity to Swamiji to, you'll see, he made it clear to us, only he could lead them, not his god brothers. To Prabhupada, to founder Acharya, finally, And he didn't reveal those things until we wanted it, until we were ready. Yeah. So please come tomorrow night. It's the conclusive evidence. Okay, is that okay?
Yes, just one moment.
Yeah.
Would it be in the fitness of things to assume that Bhaktivinoda Thakur highlighted the phrase of Mora Senapati, which Mahaprabhu had prophesied in 16th century? Would it be safe to assume that that source of inspiration came from Mahaprabhu itself, that now my Senapati will come? Is that what Prabhu?
Well, in 1885, you'll see I'm giving away the next, see, you people are too good, you're anticipating the next lesson. In 1885, you will see a slide where Bhaktivinoda Thakur not only said it, he published it in Sajjana Toshini. Soon there will appear a personality who will take Lord Chaitanya's teachings and move unrestrictedly over the whole planet. He saw that. He was such a visionary. And Prabhupada had such a sense of spiritual history that he was sensitive to that. He said, the very year that Bhaktivinoda sent his book to the West, that was the year I was born. Yeah, so Prabhupada, you'll see, it's a beautiful rhetorical flourish. Who knew I would come to my Guru Maharaj's protection. Who knew you American boys would come to me? These are all the arrangements of Krishna. And then what we do is in this next lesson, we look at all the historical arrangements that Lord Chaitanya made from the time he appeared until the time Prabhupada came to set the stage of world history, to send his Senapati Bhakta to just the right place at just the right time to explode the movement on the world scene. Yeah, I don't want to give away the whole lesson. Okay.
Prabhuji, when you were describing the four paramparas, you said the disciples in each parampara are known by their founder Acharya. So the Ramanujacharya, they call Ramanujis as you mentioned, Madhvas, like that. Now, Srila Prabhupada is our founder Acharya. So what would be appropriate for us to call ourselves? Should we call ourselves ISKCON? Should we call ourselves Gaudiya? Or what should we call ourselves? How should we introduce ourselves to other paramparas? How would that be?
Well, we already have a phrase. I don't know how much we use it, but do you know what it is? Prabhupada Nugas. Yeah, Prabhupada. We're only Rupa Nugas because Prabhupada gave us access to Rupa Goswami. It's the founder Acharya who provides the access to all teachers and teachings. Yes, you'll see that again. You're beautifully anticipating the next lesson. You'll see how Prabhupada gradually revealed his position to us. Yeah, that's why I brought up the Madhvas and the Ramanujis, because that's how they stay together. And they're only local and regional. How much more do we need this common center? We all have so many Guru Devs and so many Guru Maharajas and so many far-flung zones and different moods and different gods. That's diversity, but we need more unity amid the diversity. Yeah, Prabhupada Nugas, the very last line of the Lilamrita, Satsvarup Maharaj writes, I forget exactly how he said it, but something about we have the opportunity to be Prabhupada Nugas. I could wish no better fortune for anyone. Something like that. That was how he ended the whole thing. And you'll see that we're not sectarian. It's not that we say that Prabhupada is the way, the light, the truth. No one cometh unto Krishna but by Prabhupada. But if you make an objective study at the same time, you will see that Prabhupada is a uniquely empowered person. He's a uniquely confidential servant of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. I won't say any more because I'm just giving away the next lesson. But you're very good and you're very expert. Anyway, that's more tomorrow about Prabhupada Nugas.
The sentence that you discussed is the Acharya leader of all the Vaishnavas when physically present. Why is it limited to physical presence?
What?
One of the symptoms that you showed us of Acharya.
I'm sorry, you have to speak in American English.
One of the symptoms of Acharyas that you showed us on the screen, it was he is the Acharya or leader of all the Vaishnavas when he's physically present.
Yes.
So why is it limited to physically present?
Oh, no, I forgot to, good. I didn't mean, I usually say, and that doesn't mean only when he's physically present, but that means even when he's physically present. I should probably reword that. Thank you. I'll make a note of that. Yeah, it's not limited to physically present. Even when he's that's the intent of that. Sorry. That's a good refinement.
So when we say even when he's physically present, are we alluding to the fact that he would also represent the Sri Vaishnavas who were present at that time?
No, it means leader of his line. It doesn't mean, yeah. It's interesting. Prabhupada compared the different Vaishnava sampradayas to different political parties. Did you know that? Did you ever read that? Yeah, it's a funny analogy. Prabhupada, it's on the tape. He said the different Vaishnava sampradayas are like different political parties, because if you look at those sampradayas, they're all presenting their angle of vision on the relationship between the Lord and His energies. You know, they all have slightly, like if you go to Udupi, they can't relate to Krishna dancing with the gopis there. That's not their thing. You know, they relate to Krishna at Kurukshetra as a cowherd boy, but they can't relate to this, you know. So Prabhupada said that just like during an election, you have different political parties that are presenting their platform, you know, and everybody chooses who they're going to vote for. So people join different sampradayas. But at the end of the day, they're all, you know, like Indians, or they're all Americans, and so similarly, we're from different sampradayas, but what do we have in common? At the end of the day, all the Vaishnava sampradayas accept what? That what? God is a person. We're all personalists. We all accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But different angles, you know, different moods. Some Narayan and some Vishnu, and right. That's why Lord Chaitanya told those founder acharyas, from you I'm going to take this, from you I'm going to take this, and then I'm going to perfect it as a Chincha Beta Beta Tattva. And you see this depicted in Mayapur at the Yoga Pit Mutt, Gaudiya Mutt. So this is the best. It all culminates, Sambandha section, it culminates in this lesson tomorrow night. So please come, bring your friends. And the next lesson is the one, I think it's the lesson I taught when I came this time last year. It's the sample lesson. It's the one that best represents the whole seminar. So, any more questions? Yes, Mike. Can everyone understand my American English? Gaudiya. Okay, good question. I'm going to give you some homework. Can you have access to the Chaitanya Charitamrita? Can you get one? No? Well, somebody okay, I'm going to ask Prabhuji. You show this person Adi Leela, chapter 1, text 19. All right, that's your homework. You have to go with Prabhu, and then you tell us tomorrow night. It's in the purport, what Gaudiya means. Good question. It refers, to Lord Chaitanya in the area of the country where he appeared in. He's got it electronically. Okay, he's going to access it right now. But any more questions? Okay, right here. Here we go. Gaudiya. Okay, it's loud, clear for the American ear.
Hare Krishna. You show that Gautama Das Thakur, he approaches his spiritual master Rupa Goswami Maharaj, and then he requests him to take him to Rupa Goswami. I just wanted to understand how this relationship was. This Gautama Das Thakur and Rupa Goswami Maharaj, they are having the relationship keeping Rupa Goswami in the center, you need to say. Similarly, we all having the relationship keeping Prabhupada in the center.
Yes. Good. Yeah. Here's. I'll give you an example. I'll tell a story. I'm going to tell you a story. Did you hear the question? Just as Lokanath and Narottam had this pastime, Rupa Goswami being their leader. So how do we do it in ISKCON, right? How does that work in ISKCON? Okay. I have a colleague, a friend in ISKCON education who, you see, she told me to keep her anonymous, so I'll tell her story, but I won't tell you who she is, and I won't tell you who she took initiation from either. But you're probably going to guess. Anyway, she read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita in 1987. Okay? And then she was so inspired that she wanted to meet the author, right? But then she was mortified to find out the author disappeared, 10 years earlier in 1977. But she's so inspired that she starts associating with devotees. And she's already a teacher. She was a teacher when she came to the movement. And then, that was 1987. And she's reading Prabhupada's books. And she knows in Prabhupada's books that it says you must accept initiation. Take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, take initiation. But she's really attached to Prabhupada. And in 1991, she marries someone who's initiated by Srila Prabhupada. She marries a direct disciple of Prabhupada. And then she decides she wants to be initiated, so she writes a leader who initiates, and she says, I'm really inspired by your preaching. Could we enter into a guru-disciple relationship? So the leader writes back and says, well, I'm not initiating so much anymore, and you'll probably never see me, so, and you're already married to a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Why don't you just follow your husband? So she's disappointed because she knows Prabhupada says you're supposed to be initiated, right? So she says, oh boy, I really like this person, but I guess I'll just do that. So she does. But she's a real studious person. She's a teacher type, so she keeps hearing from Prabhupada that she's supposed to take initiation. And so now this is, okay, she first read Prabhupada's books in the 80s. ISKCON's going through a lot of, dramas and traumas and the dark night of its soul and all this stuff. In the 90s also, so many things happen. And so she starts to think, even though she's hearing from Prabhupada that she's supposed to accept initiation, she sees what's going on in ISKCON and she thinks, well, I don't know if I want to take initiation. I don't want anybody to come in between me and Prabhupada, because she knows Prabhupada is her foundation, and she doesn't want to risk being betrayed or let down or disappointed. So the 90s go on, and then the millennium ends. You remember Y2K? You remember that? And the world did not go off in a puff of cyber smoke. Everything went on, And then she takes a fresh look at her situation, and she thinks, well, this is driving me mad. I know Prabhupada says I should be initiated, but I'll be darned if I'm going to offer incense to anybody else's picture or prasad or a flower. I can't even imagine that, because she's been reading Prabhupada's books for years. But Prabhupada's telling her she needs to be initiated. 2003, she's at a festival with her husband, and she hears another leader speaking, and she's really inspired again. So she says to her husband, Prabhu, we've got to meet with Maharaj. I've got to tell him my dilemma. I've got to resolve this. This is driving me crazy, So the Maharaj finishes speaking, and her husband approaches the organizer of the festival and says, my wife really needs to speak to Maharaj. Could we have a darshan? And then the festival organizer says, well, Maharaj has been traveling all over the world, and he's really tired, and he's not feeling well. I'll tell you what, I'll give you 10 minutes. So by Krishna's arrangement, 10 minutes turned into 20 minutes. And then 20 minutes turned into 30 minutes. And then 30 minutes turned into 40 minutes. In the course of 40 minutes, this very sincere lady just spilled out her heart and her mind, and put all her cards on the table, as they say. And then she asked the question, is how I'm thinking offensive? Is this offensive, Maharaj? Now the Maharaj was very wise, and the Maharaj said, no, this is not offensive. This is intelligent. You know Prabhupada is your foundational spiritual master. You know that. And then she proceeded to tell the lady how long it took him to accept Srila Prabhupada as his spiritual master. And then he said the magic words. And it wasn't just a line. It wasn't just a magic line. It was sincere, realized words. He said, what if you took initiation from someone who wouldn't block your relationship with Srila Prabhupada, but would enhance it, would enrich it, would deepen it, who could bring you closer to Srila Prabhupada, just the way Lokanath brought Narottam closer to Rupa Goswami. What about that? And so the poor lady, you know what she said? Oh, I never heard that before. Wow, no wonder she's having a hard time. She never knew, she never heard that. That that's the function, that's the dharma, that's the duty, that's the sacred business of the Diksha and the Shiksha Gurus. To enrich, enhance, and deepen what should already be your core identity, your core relationship as a Prabhupada Anuga. She never heard that. But the Maharaj knew. And so she began to develop a relationship with the Maharaj. And sure enough, a year later, she took Diksha. Now I knew her story. So when I sat down to do the basic research for this seminar in 2011 in Hawaii, where I was based at the time, I wrote her an email and I said, Mataji, would you please set down your story in writing for me so I have a written record? And she said, okay, only if you don't, I don't want to be the poster child of how to take initiation. I don't, just keep it anonymous, all right? So I'm honoring her request. So she told me just what I just told you. And then at the end, she said, she wrote a nice little epilogue, a little PS. She said, and Sureshwar Prabhu, I'm happy to tell you, this is 2011, so she said, in the 7 years that Maharaj has been my Diksha Guru, not only has he kept his promise to bring me closer to Prabhupada, enrich my relationship with Prabhupada, but because he is who he is, now he has also taken his place in my heart at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. So I said, yes, that's parampara. It all rests on transparency. And it's everybody's, we all have this responsibility in our own way to access our Prabhupada. This is the last lesson of the journey, your Srila Prabhupada. And we give everybody we meet our Prabhupada. And if we're transparent, that's Guru. We're all supposed to do that, according to our capacity. So, yeah, that's why I call it a cultural seed of Founder Acharya. That Narottam Das Thakur writing that song and begging his Lord and Master, Lokanath Goswami, he's the only disciple of Lokanath, to bring him to the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami. Their Rasacharya in the Vishwa Vaishnav Raj Sabha. Okay, and I tell the lady, when I tell her, I see her, I say, you know, your story, Mataji, is one of the best stories in the whole seminar. Because it's really what we need to do in ISKCON, more and more and more. The reason we have this Prabhupada's Position Committee is because we're trying to bring some depth and consistency and harmony to the Guru-disciple culture in ISKCON. And it's wildly divergent. It's not, you know, and we're not trying to homogenize it. There should be diversity, but at least there should be consistency, transparency to Srila Prabhupada more and more. Okay, it's getting close to 9. How are we doing? Anybody else? You're very attentive. I really appreciate your I can tell by your eyes you're listening, you know. It's nice. Anyone else? And by the way, I'm really enjoying my time here because everything is so well organized here. You know, Radhanath Maharaj, he's really got it, organization and intelligence. So it frees me to just, you know what I'm doing? As I'm here, I'm turning my lessons into BTG articles as part of the BTG's 50th anniversary celebrations. Starting in the July-August issue, you're going to see these lessons in article form. And they're really different than the presentation. It's interesting how the written word is really a whole different thing. So, but it's fun. So, because everything's so well organized here, I'm so peaceful to do my work. Thank you very much. Okay, we ready to dream about Prabhupada? Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.